All right, good afternoon. We've had a wonderful morning. Great breakout groups. Everybody I talk to says we got some really good ideas going. And the lunch was delicious. Thank you. And so now we want to move on to session two. And in this session, we're going to hear from two of our two people, Carolyn Wilson, who will discuss trends in the transition of geoscience graduates into the workforce, and Rich Loft, our fearless leader, who will talk about approaches to diversity. So we're going to start with Carolyn Wilson, and Carolyn is a geoscience workforce data analyst with the American Geoscience Institute. Turn it over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm all attached and it's turned on. So we're good. Hi, so I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about some of the data that we've been collecting recently in AGI. And before I start, I'm gonna say that I also work with Christopher Keene. He's the Director of Technology and Communications at AGI and really the workforce guru. And Heather Holton, who is our education and outreach specialist, and really she does a lot of the work on diversity issues out of our office. But y'all invited me, so I came. So I'm going to talk about who AGI is in case you are not familiar, and talk a little bit about some surveys that I am conducting with data on the transition from your four-year degree into the workforce and what we're seeing amongst geoscience graduates. Talk a little bit about some trends we see in the workforce in general, and then some recommendations that we have found through data. This is going to be a whole lot of graphs that I'm going to throw out there and really talk about what's behind the graphs, maybe not explicitly describe the graphs in detail. All right, so AGI was founded in 1948. We are a federation of member societies. So if you are a member of GSA or AGU or any of the many member societies related to geosciences, it's a good chance you are also connected to AGI as well. These are the different programs we have. We do K-12 education work, we do workforce work, which is what I'm in, do policy work. If you've ever used GeoRef to look up articles, that's out of our office. If you've ever read Earth Magazine, that also comes out of our office. So that's our website. We just updated it and created a new website. Check it out, it's really cool. And if you want anything workforce related, just /workforce. So I'm currently doing two studies that are actually connected to each other. The first one has been running a little bit longer than the second one. It's an exit survey for students finishing their geoscience degree. And there's a couple reports being passed around. Does anyone have the white glossy reports? Y'all don't mind passing around. One of them is actually the report of last year's data from the exit survey, the skinnier one. The thicker one is the workforce report that we just released in May. Yes. So I distribute my survey through departments and through the member societies to their student membership. And I'm asking questions about their educational background, the experiences they've had in the geosciences, and what their immediate plans after graduation. So this is then followed up with a longitudinal survey looking closely at the early career workforce. So if they take my exit survey, I give them another survey a year later, just asking them what job they have, a little information about that job, how long it took for them to find that job, really basic information. And so that will follow them for the next 5 to 7 years to really get a good picture of what the early career workforce looks like, because no one ever has really. We'll also collect data on current geoscientists to get a good broad picture of what the geoscience workforce currently looks like right now. This is a project that we did that's not at all related to these, but I put this up there because this is something that we want to try to do. We want to start identifying pathways and connections with different jobs and skill sets that our workforce has. So this is actually the AGI employees. Each line is an AGI employee. And what's interesting about AGI is that nearly everyone that works for AGI has some sort of geoscience degree. So it's interesting the connections you find. We found a lot of geology and English double majors at AGI. A lot of people at AGI become data analysts at some point, had come to become data analysts at some point. And so we want to start mapping trends, actually very physically mapping trends in how people move through the workforce and the kind of jobs and skills they fill. So some real quick information about future plans we see amongst our recent graduates. So this top graph is the students planning to pursue a graduate degree that got an undergraduate degree. So the bottom one is those that finished a graduate degree planning to pursue a second degree. Obviously, your undergraduates are going to have a wider range of interests and options, and people who have graduated with a previous graduate degree have a little bit more better idea of what they want to study and are very much more specific. As far as the workforce goes, these are the industries that we find are hiring our graduates at graduation. So this is not within a few months, within a year of graduation. This is upon graduating. These are the industries that are hiring graduates, and it's predominantly oil and gas. And I'll get to a little bit more about that as we move on. But what's interesting is the options are much more varied at the bachelor's level, and become less varied with the as you get to the doctoral level. And these are the starting salaries we see for graduates. And by and large, the master's degree is where the money is. But I will say that's the petroleum industry. Everyone on there making over $90,000 a year is working in the petroleum industry. So this is data from the pilot of the follow-up survey. So I wouldn't trust these numbers completely because I didn't have enough participants, but it gives you an idea. It gives you an idea of what we're seeing as far as like finding a job within the first year of graduation. And that 80% of the people that took the survey are actually working in the geosciences. So currently we have nearly 300,000 geoscientists. This data is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And in 2022, that's going to increase by nearly 50,000. As far as underrepresented minorities in the geoscience workforce, it's for the past 3 years been hovering around 7-8%. And this is BLS data, but it also matches what NSF is seeing in the geoscience workforce as well. As far as women, which is not in here, but that data is in one of my reports, women hovers around 20% in the whole workforce. All right, so this is a graph that I recreated from the 2011 report. And it looked really scary in the 2011 report because it looked like the current workforce plus the new entries of graduates going into oil and gas industry were not going to keep up with the demand of workforce that we were going to see due to retirements and people moving and changing industries. However, the petroleum industry has realized that this is an issue. And so is the mining industry, and many of these industries have recognized that these are issues that their majority of their workforce is going to retire soon, and they need to step up their recruitment and step up their skills transfer. So what we're now seeing is that if students stay in the industry as an early career geoscientist and maintain, then oil and gas should have the correct amount of workforce necessary to continue on with their work. And this graph is the mining industry. So if you saw it in 2011, you got the normal curve of very, very few in the lower age groups and curving over to a larger workforce in the higher age groups. But again, the mining industry has recognized, the petroleum industry has also recognized that they need to be hiring younger people and keeping them in the industry and engaged. However, the federal workforce has not figured this out yet. And I'll show you in a little bit, the federal workforce is projected to see a 10% decrease in geoscientists by 2022. So the only industry, or the only field within the federal workforce that is currently hiring early career is the meteorology. So National Weather Service and NOAA, they are hiring meteorologists. The others are not quite keeping up with the future demand. So this is the projected change. Like I said, nearly every major industry is going to see a positive change in jobs available, except for mining and the federal government. Oh, and I will say, due to the retirement, the upcoming retirement in the next 10 years of baby boomers, with the 50,000 extra workers and the retirement, we're looking at about 135,000 jobs that could be available in the next 10 to 15 years. Leads me to some recommendations. I'm flying through this, which means that you'll have plenty of time for questions. I'm not used to giving 30-minute presentations. So I have a few recommendations on how to increase recruitment and retention of students in the degree and into the workforce. And the first thing is the two-year college students. We're seeing a pretty dramatic increase at two-year college level of enrollment. And this is true at four-year college, but the increase is more dramatic at the two-year college level. And this is particularly true for minority enrollments. Percentages are higher of minorities enrolling in two-year colleges than in four-year institutions. We feel like this is a really major pool of talent that needs to be addressed. And discussed and really looked at that transition between two-year to four-year or two-year into the workforce. Also, encouraging field and research experiences. We've seen a 96% increase in field camp attendance since 2006. And to the point where a lot of graduate programs are expecting you to have taken a field camp before you apply for school. We're actually worried that field camps may be reaching capacity, so we might start seeing a flattening out of this line in the next couple of years because they just can't handle the demand. And we do know that over 20% of bachelor's graduates wanted to attend a field camp but didn't have the opportunity to while they were working for their degree. As far as research methods, it's the only one that speaks directly to computational methods. However, when I was thinking about this presentation and I was thinking about computational geoscience, I didn't quite know how to address this because, from my perspective, as I was saying at lunchtime, at the higher end of the millennial generation, computational geoscience or visualizations, anything related to that sort of work with data, is prevalent across the board in the geosciences. So talking specifically about computational geosciences was weird to me because it felt like that was something that should be pervasive throughout the discipline and definitely throughout the workforce. But anyways, this graph is looking at research methods of students while they're working on their individual research methods. I think computer-based research has really increased, particularly at the master's level, for individual research projects. We hear from industries and from graduate schools that they want students with higher level quantitative skills. We find the majority of students get to Calc 2, and then that's basically it. So this graph is asking the students to check every single class they've taken. So those students that have gone on to 3, linear algebra, differential equations, computational methods, these are probably the same students that just are taking this class. And we find that there is an issue of making sure that students are quantitatively prepared for entering the workforce. Internships are major, and I'm not sure that they are encouraged enough from what we hear from this survey and from other students. I think it's interesting that so many bachelor's and doctoral graduates said they had never taken an internship while they were working towards their degree. And I will say nearly half of the master's graduates that took an internship found a job at the industry where they had their internship. Cultivate professional skills. Looking at this was a question from the follow-up survey of the workforce asking about their skills they use regularly at their job. And as you can see, it's writing, it's communication, and it's that data analysis piece and being able to work with others. And so being able to develop those skills in your students and being able to develop the ability for them to communicate effectively is huge. And as far as how to find a job, it's about being able to effectively network to the people around you, to your personal networks as well as your professional networks, and the faculty referrals were fairly big as well. So having your faculty mentor their advisees and understand what opportunities they have after graduation is really key. And encouraging your students to join member societies. These member societies have recognized that workforce development is a big deal. So you see that jump in percentage of under 30 as members of these professional member societies because they're encouraging more student memberships. They're giving away free and discounted memberships, and member societies will help get these students to jobs and help them connect with the professionals they need to be connected with. This is particularly true for the professional member societies. All right, so here are some links to to reports. Our currents are one-pagers that we put out on workforce trends. That's our webpage, and that's my email address.
So you were talking about field camps as being a really important part of getting people trained and internships as well. Is there anything to help low socioeconomic status and non-traditional students to go into those?
I know there are some programs that do offer funding and so forth. However, it's extremely competitive for field camps and field experiences that actually teach some of those skills. So I think that's an area that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
Oh, well. Thank you. So one of the things I might suggest about why they're not saying that they went to field camp is because some smaller, primarily undergraduate institutions are actually integrating those pieces that often traditionally have been those 4 to 6 week camps away into their curriculum so that it is mapped specifically to course and vertical alignment. And if you live somewhere where you have elevation change and rock type change, then you can do that. And that might be part of what's embedded in the data. And I know one of the institutions I'm affiliated with, we do it that way because we can also incorporate maybe a 2-week out in Montana rather than in Arkansas. But it's also more disability accessible, accommodationable, if that's a word. And so that might be some of the trends that we're seeing, other than it just costs major bling to go to camp.
But I will say every single person that took my survey had either had some sort of field experience, whether it be field camp, a field course with that skills development, or a field trip into the field.
I think you partly answered it, but I'm trying to understand what constitutes a field camp.
Yes.
The word sounds to me like it's done outside of school. You say sometimes it's integrated into the school, Wendy, and I'm just curious to know what it is, because when I went to school, I took a whole quarter that was field-based, and I got 4 courses worth of credit for it. So is that what it is?
We have very clear definitions when we give out the survey. So field camp is usually connected with the university. However, you don't have to go to your university's field camp. It's usually a summer activity of 4 to 6 weeks in the field every day, practicing mapping skills and some of the other skills associated with geology and geoscience. Field courses are where at least half of your course time is out in the field developing those skills. And then a field trip is some sort of field experience that doesn't fit those other 2 categories. So if you go for a field trip to look at rock formations, but it only lasts for a week or something, then that wouldn't fit either category.
Can you actually camps?
Which one, this one or the other one?
So that's showing attendance. So those were the two slides that you had.
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking about this in part because I know that there's actually about to be next month, the GSA Today cover story is about a paper that my PhD advisor wrote. They did a study looking at a survey of GSA members, looking at what's the perceived value of field camp. And so this is very interesting data to see. The professional perspective is slightly different, and then I think there's actually a growing dialogue amongst professionals about, is field camp something that, one, we can afford to do, but then also what are in fact the benefits of it? So it's interesting to see these numbers, but I think I wanted to bring it up. I didn't know if you were going to bring it up, but I wanted to bring up that other side.
Here, a lot of graduate schools like to see field camp on the resume, and if it's not as an undergraduate, they want to see you do it as their graduate student. There are some industries that appreciate this or really, really, really like this. There are some industries that will take you on their own field camp type course to train you in their methods as well.
So really quickly, I wanted to ask how, I didn't get to see some of the materials you sent around, but how are some of these, how far are they disaggregated based on like gender or other?
I have that information. I can, but I haven't presented a whole lot of disaggregated on this report. On some of this report, especially the transition from degree to the workforce, because I don't feel like I had enough responses to fully disaggregate yet. However, I have nearly 700 for 2014, so things are looking up. That skinny book is going to get thicker in September.
Thank you.
Hi, Carolyn. Nice data.
Thank you.
So I had a question similar to Stephanie. When was the demographics of these students? Because I would think this is the pool that you're going to be very interested in as part of the CESL effort. And there was also one, would you advance one more?
Do you remember what it was?
So I'm thinking about, I thought there were some things about disciplinary breakdown. Some of this
I think there was.
case. I think that somewhere, I think it's somewhere in your data set, there's also a really interesting array of sub-disciplines, so that as we proceed in this workshop, we can also think about which of these sub-disciplines would we want to address for recruiting students for computational geoscience kinds of avenues.
Well, and that leads me to a plug. If you would like your students to take the exit survey and be counted within this, please let me know, and I will give it to you to distribute to your graduates at every single graduation period, because we're looking for more. We're always looking for more responses. We want as good of a representation of the geosciences as a whole, not just geology, but atmospheric sciences, oceanography, geography, everybody.
So in addition, so you know about the On to the Future effort that GSA has done, identifying a couple hundred diverse geoscience students, and that would probably be.
Well, GSA distributes the survey to their member societies, or I'm sorry, to their student membership, which is very nice of them. But as far as like some of the smaller groups, I haven't quite hit that yet. I'm trying to get all my member societies on board to just send it to their student members right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Wonderful.